Today's writing question is, the proportion of children and adolescents experiencing deteriorating eyesight has risen sharply in many countries over recent decades, prompting growing concern among health professionals and policymakers alike. What are the main causes of this development, and what measures could be taken to address it? This is a Band 9 model essay that fully addresses both parts of the question, builds a coherent causal argument across every paragraph, and closes with a conclusion that extends rather than simply restates. If you are new here, subscribe now. This channel will help you improve your IELTS band score. Deteriorating vision among the young has emerged as a pressing public health concern in numerous countries, with ophthalmologists reporting a dramatic rise in myopia diagnoses among school-age populations. This essay argues that the condition is driven primarily by modern behavioral shifts and that reversing it requires coordinated action from both families and educational institutions. The most significant contributor to this trend is the radical reduction in time children spend outdoors, combined with the dramatic increase in near-focus activity. When a child spends the majority of waking hours fixated on screens or textbooks at close range, the eye muscles responsible for distance vision receive little exercise, causing the eyeball to gradually elongate, the physiological basis of myopia. Compounding this is the near-total disappearance of unstructured outdoor play from many children's daily routines, since natural light and the visual demand of focusing on distant objects are known to slow this structural change in the eye. In densely populated cities, where academic pressure begins at an early age and living spaces offer little room for outdoor activity, this combination of risk factors is especially acute. Having lost the environmental cues that once regulated visual development naturally, today's urban children are particularly vulnerable to irreversible sight deterioration. Seldom do policymakers consider vision health when designing school curricula. Yet it is the structure of the school day itself that must change if this trend is to be halted. It is the systematic elimination of outdoor breaks in favor of additional study periods that has deprived children of the very conditions their developing eyes require. Governments should mandate a minimum daily duration of outdoor activity within school hours, not as a recreational afterthought, but as a health intervention with the same standing as physical education. Simultaneously, the normalization of screen time from infancy warrants a public awareness campaign targeting parents, equipping them with practical guidance on managing close focus exposure at home. The introduction of regular eye screening programs in primary schools would further allow early detection and timely corrective intervention before deterioration becomes permanent. In sum, the surge in juvenile myopia reflects a convergence of lifestyle and institutional pressures that are entirely within human capacity to address. Sustained commitment from governments, schools, and families represents the only viable path toward protecting future generations' sight. Now let us go through the essay section by section, because understanding why each paragraph works is the difference between a Band 6 response and a Band 9 one. The introduction does two things at once. The opening sentence establishes the real-world scale of the problem by naming the professionals involved, ophthalmologists, and anchoring the issue in a specific medical diagnosis, myopia. That kind of specificity signals to the examiner that the writer has genuine knowledge of the topic rather than vague familiarity. The second sentence delivers a thesis that is sharp and committed. It does not say, there are several causes and several solutions. It tells the examiner exactly what the essay will argue, that the causes are behavioral, and that the solution requires coordinated action. A hedged or balanced opening weakens task achievement immediately. This one avoids that trap entirely. The first body paragraph earns its marks through causal reasoning, not simply listing causes. Every sentence does mechanical work, The first sentence names the central cause. The second sentence explains the physiology, the elongation of the eyeball, so the argument is grounded in biological fact rather than opinion. The third sentence introduces a compounding factor, the loss of outdoor play, and again gives a reason. Natural light and distance focusing are the mechanisms that slow the structural change. Notice how each sentence extends the previous one rather than starting fresh with a new, unrelated point. That forward movement within the paragraph is what coherence actually looks like. The paragraph ends with having lost the environmental cues that once regulated visual development naturally, which is a fronted participial phrase that connects the entire preceding analysis to a single vulnerable subject. Today's urban children. This is sophisticated paragraph architecture, and the examiner will recognize it. If this is already clearer than what you have been writing, hit the like button. It helps me grow the channel and produce better videos for you. The second body paragraph opens with one of the most striking moves in the essay. Seldom do policymakers consider vision health when designing school curricula. This is a fronted negative adverb triggering subject-verb inversion, a structure almost never used by Band 6 writers and instantly visible to an examiner looking for grammatical range. But more importantly, the sentence earns its place. It introduces the institutional dimension of the problem, the school system, which is the transition the paragraph requires. The it cleft that follows. It is the systematic elimination of outdoor breaks that has deprived children of the very conditions their developing eyes require, does the same work rhetorically as the inversion. It places emphasis precisely where the argument needs it. The paragraph then moves from diagnosis to prescription in logical order, government mandates, parental awareness campaigns, and school screening programs, each one connected to the cause identified in the previous paragraph. This is task achievement and coherence working together. The conclusion is a single, clean synthesis. It does not repeat the thesis word for word. Instead, it reframes the argument. The problem is described as a convergence of lifestyle and institutional pressures, which is a more precise formulation than anything in the introduction, and the phrase, entirely within human capacity to address, introduces a note of reasoned optimism that was absent earlier. The final sentence names the three responsible actors, governments, schools, and families, in exactly the order they appeared in the body paragraphs. That structural echo signals a writer in control of the whole essay, not just individual sentences. Now the vocabulary section. The word ophthalmologists in the opening sentence immediately elevates the register. It is not there for decoration. It specifies exactly which health professionals are relevant, and it is used accurately. Compare this to writing eye doctors or medical experts, both of which are correct but imprecise. Myopia functions the same way. Using the clinical term rather than short-sightedness shows lexical confidence and awareness of register appropriate to a formal academic text. Elongate is used as a verb describing what happens to the eyeball. This is precise biological vocabulary. The sentence does not say the eye gets longer or changes shape. The exact process is named. Compounding, as a fronted participle, signals that the writer understands how to build an argument through accumulation rather than simple addition. Also would have been weaker. Compounding this tells the examiner that the second factor worsens the first, which is a different logical relationship altogether. Warrants, in the solutions paragraph, is an example of precise formal vocabulary. Needs, or requires, would have served the grammar. Warrants carries the additional meaning of something being justified or deserved, which is exactly the logical weight the sentence needs. Convergence, in the conclusion, is again specific and accurate. The problem is not simply a collection of causes, it is a convergence, meaning the causes meet and reinforce each other. That is a more sophisticated claim, and the word choice reflects it. Now the grammar section. The first structure to notice is the fronted participial phrase. In the first body paragraph, the essay reads, "Having lost the environmental cues that once regulated visual development naturally, today's urban children are particularly vulnerable to irreversible sight deterioration." The participial phrase comes before the main clause and shares its subject with it. This is a complex grammatical construction that allows the writer to compress a full causal explanation into a modifier, and it reads naturally because the shared subject rule is respected. The second structure is the fronted negative adverb with subject-verb inversion. The essay reads, "Seldom do policymakers consider vision health when designing school curricula." In standard word order, this would be, "Policymakers seldom consider." By fronting seldom, the grammar requires inversion of subject and auxiliary. This structure appears in advanced academic writing and is one of the clearest signals of grammatical range in the entire essay. The third structure is the cleft sentence. The essay reads, "It is the systematic elimination of outdoor breaks in favor of additional study periods that has deprived children of the very conditions their developing eyes require." The cleft structure splits the sentence into a focused element and a relative clause, placing maximum emphasis on the cause being named. This is not decorative complexity. It is a grammatical choice that serves the argument. The fourth structure is the passive construction with modal. The essay reads, "Natural light and the visual demand of focusing on distant objects are known to slow this structural change in the eye." The passive here is used appropriately because the agent, the scientific community broadly, is less important than the fact itself. This is exactly the condition under which the passive should be chosen, when the action matters more than who performs it. The fifth structure is complex subordination through a fronted adverbial clause. The essay reads, "In densely populated cities, where academic pressure begins at an early age and living spaces offer little room for outdoor activity, this combination of risk factors is especially acute." The prepositional phrase opens the sentence, followed immediately by a non-defining relative clause embedded within it before the main clause arrives. This creates a layered, multi-clause sentence that demonstrates genuine syntactic control. The sixth structure is the defining relative clause embedded within a larger clause. The very conditions their developing eyes require. Here, their developing eyes require is a contact relative clause, a defining relative clause with the relative pronoun omitted, modifying conditions. The omission is grammatically correct and stylistically elegant. Band 9 writers use contact relatives naturally without over-explaining. So what makes this a Band 9 essay? Task achievement is secured because the question asks for causes and measures, and the essay provides both, not as a list, but as a coherent argument. Each cause in the first body paragraph directly generates a corresponding measure in the second. The essay is not two separate halves bolted together. It is one unified response. Coherence and cohesion come from the way each sentence builds on the previous one within paragraphs, and from the way the body paragraphs connect to each other. The conclusion names the three actors in the same order they appeared in the body, which creates structural closure without mechanical repetition. Lexical resource is demonstrated through accurate use of clinical and formal vocabulary. Ophthalmologists, myopia, elongate, convergence, where every advanced word is precisely used, not inserted for impression. Grammatical range is demonstrated through 6 distinct structures: the fronted participial phrase, subject-verb inversion after a negative adverb, the cleft structure, the passive with modal, the fronted adverbial with embedded relative, and the contact relative clause. All of them appear naturally in the flow of argument. That is what Band 9 writing looks like in practice. Study this essay closely and try to apply at least 2 of these grammatical structures in your next IELTS essay practice. Thank you for watching.